and we move at light speed. Last of a dying breed, my Akis move at light speed.
I can feel eyes on me everywhere I go. Not paranoid or conceited, but
At this time, 8 years ago, Ukrainian nationalists raised the sluice gate. Here, at this time, 8 years ago, Ukrainian nationalists raised the sluice gate and cut off water flow from the Dnieper River. Here, at this time, 8 years ago, Ukrainian nationalists raised the sluice gate and cut off water flow from the Dnieper River to the North Crimean Water Canal, the longest water canal in Europe, cutting off fresh water supply for the entire Crimean Peninsula. Russian troops, having arrived here, lowered those sluice gates and again, after 8 years, restored that water supply. But there were surprises again left behind by Ukrainian nationalists that these mechanisms which regulate the water flow, they left behind explosives. 4 of these stations, 5 kilograms of explosives, as each military engineers were first on the scene, and it is they who disarmed these explosive devices before they could be triggered. Another reminder about why and against whom Russia launched this operation. This is the Novaya Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant. This vast dam holds back the Dnieper River, which spans and splits Ukraine. This hydroelectric power plant was one of the strategic and critical infrastructure sites that have been seized by advancing Russian forces. There wasn't any fighting here, so it and other sites haven't been damaged. They continue to produce electrical power that feeds cities and villages, communities, all around for miles and miles. Be they nuclear, thermal, or hydropower plants, Russia has made securing them a priority. Most takeovers have been more or less peaceful, but not all.
Личный состав. Personnel repelled the attack on the dam successfully and defended the facility without any losses on our side.
The staff of the Novaya Kakhovka hydropower plant continued with their duties, even as battles with the Dnieper 1 Ukrainian Nationalist Battalion broke out just to the north of it. Continued with their duties, even as battles with the Dnieper 1 Ukrainian Nationalist Battalion broke out just to the north of it. Operations were moved to a subterranean control room, which for years has served as a museum for tour groups.
The station operates in the energy system of Ukraine. The parameters comply with all norms and requirements. Since the operation of the station cannot be interrupted, there are 3 people at the station around the clock. And repair teams are now working as well, eliminating defects and damage.
From here, the skeleton crew monitored and adjusted output as needed. Power surge or a disruption here would be felt across all of Ukraine, which works on a single power grid. I am now literally on top of a hydroelectric generator, which is very much running. This vast room is the machine room, the generator room at the Kakhovskaya hydroelectric power plant. 4 of the generators are currently active, producing great amounts of power for outlying cities and nearby communities and villages. Morad Gazdiev from Novaya Kakhovka, Ukraine.
Пришли воевать. Зачем же вы рушите? Еще слышно, там где-то бьют. слава богу, спокойно все.
Да?
Да.
Недавно украинский контролировал здесь, да?
Украинская армия бьет, конечно, била украинская армия, конечно.
Ага. И как это было это время?
Как это было? Как это было? Ехало 2 танка, это я видела своими глазами, потому что я была на улице. Ехало 2 танка украинских. 3-й танк немножечко остановился, он отстал от них. 2 со скоростью сумасшедшей проскочили на гору, а 3-й начал обстрел по селу. И когда он 3 раза выпустил свои гранаты, и чем там танк стреляет этот, он попал вот туда, и потом 2 раза он туда, в ту сторону попал, а 3-й раз он разрушил угол на садике. Это я видела своими глазами, потому что я бежала в подвал.
So, вы сказал, украинский танк стреляет на украинский
Да, они
контролировал сад.
обстреливали наше село. Они обстреливали наше село.
Но они контролировали здесь, как это возможно?
Как это возможно? Ну как возможно? А как они делают это все? Они специально рушат. Если вы пришли воевать, зачем же вы рушите дома? Причем тут простые дома. Что же они? Да. А тут бой был, тут сумасшедший бой у нас в центре был. И притом это было, я вам 100% говорю, это была провокация 100%, потому что вот здесь стоял этот БТР, уперся сельский совет, в нем обнаружили форму русскую, в нем обнаружили пайки русские. Какого ж черта этот БТР тут русский спрятался и стрелял в своих русских? Если у нас вот тут они заняли позицию, хлопцы русские, 7 танков возле колодца, они заняли позицию, а эти идиоты выскочили с балки, с бахчевика и делали вот здесь провокацию, и свои вот эти джавелины вот здесь покидали.
Ага, это провокация.
Does China want to provide military supplies to Russia? Crossing that line means the U.S. must elevate competition to confrontation. U.S. officials met Chinese counterparts in Rome, and their meeting, nothing new. But that is the key. We break down why. A climate agenda from the Biden administration is only aiding China's climate aggression. That is, using the 2050 promise to establish more coal power, more pollution. And can the United States really work with China on climate change? What is the catch? I talked with Mark Moreno from Climate Depot to find out. Welcome to China Insider. I'm David Zhang. You know, hope is a funny thing. You hold high expectations for someone who clearly sees to have potential. Now, in the case of the current Biden administration, some still hold hope that the Chinese Communist Party is able to play by the rules, but the truth is far from that. In this war on Ukraine, China is not playing the role of the mediator to help alleviate the pain and the suffering of everybody. In fact, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi says China is going down its own way in this invasion. Quote, from the first day of the outbreak of the Ukrainian crisis, they don't call it a war, we have been using our way to foster peace talks as a permanent 5 member of the United Nations Security Council. And this is Wang telling Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez in a phone call. But Wang clearly forgot that the voting records on Ukraine by China has been nothing but abstention, something worse than a yes or no. China has abstained from voting whenever a resolution to condemn Russia has been called upon, and China is not the peacemaker it desperately tries to be. At least its actions are not showing anything. Nor is China showing actions that suggest they're trying to promote a ceasefire. And a meeting between the two countries is showing that no progress can be made, perhaps even getting worse, is that of the U.S.-China relationship. On Monday, Jake Sullivan met his Chinese counterpart in Rome. For 7 hours they talked, sometimes even without aides by their side. Shocking. But the results are just as expected as any other talks between the United States and China's officials for the past year. Nothing. This is what the White House established after the exhausting meeting, which is simply just a paragraph. Did the Biden team have high hopes going into the meeting about China? We don't know, but it seems time and time again, China has shown that they're not up to negotiation. In fact, it seems that the two parties, the United States and China, have just agreed to disagree. The meeting that lasted 7 hours was said to be highly private in intent, according to U.S. officials. And part of the meeting revolved around the U.S. suggesting that Russia may seek military supply from China. And China, of course, repeatedly denied this claim, as well as Russia's Kremlin spokesman, who also denied this. According to U.S. officials, Russia is asking China to supply equipments like drones and surface-to-air missiles, intelligence equipment, armored vehicles, and transport vehicles. However, though, others argue that Russian request, this order, is not actually an emergency request to China because of the invasion that was coming to a stalemate, but rather it was requested on the day of the invasion. Jake Sullivan has said that China's help to Russia would implicate the Chinese government and would cause them to face punishments. But we don't know exactly what the consequences are, as well as what was discussed in the meeting about the consequences. It seems, however, the Chinese side has released 2 separate readouts, compared to the one made by the United States. And just before we talk about the actual statement to do with Ukraine, the first readout was actually about Taiwan. In particular, here's the interesting part. Quote, on the Taiwan issue, the current U.S. administration has made a commitment to adhere to the One China policy and not support, quote, Taiwan independence, but its actions are obviously inconsistent with its statements. Okay, so pause for a second. We clearly view the Biden administration's China policy as largely following that of the Trump administration, provided changes such as climate change being a large focus, but the larger picture remains as a competition with China. Of course, as the times go, tones of the statements have been lowered compared to the Trump administration, and that is to be expected. Now, let's continue to read. Quote, China expresses grave concern and firm opposition to the recent series of wrong words and deeds by the U.S. on Taiwan-related issues. Any attempt to condone and support the Taiwan independent separatist forces and attempt to play the Taiwan card to use Taiwan to control China will never succeed. End quote. The wordings here sound very insensitive, very triggered. Remember, this meeting between Sullivan and Yang, the Chinese counterpart, was supposed to be largely about Ukraine. Of course, we don't know what exactly they talked about, but to get a response that is a Taiwan-focused response could mean that things are triggering for the CCP, which is, of course, they're evaluating how they want to invade Taiwan or whether or not this invasion of Ukraine has deterred the Chinese Communist Party or perhaps has unified the Western response. So let's compare this statement of the Taiwan statement to that of the Ukraine statement. And it's clearly shorter. Not only is it shorter, but the language they used here is much softer in tone compared to the Taiwan statement. Quote, Yang Jiechi pointed out that China does not want to see the situation in Ukraine come to this point. China has always advocated respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries and abiding by the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. China is committed to promoting peace talks, and the international community should jointly support the Russia-Ukraine peace talks to achieve substantive results as soon as possible and push the situation to cool down as soon as possible. All parties should exercise maximum restraint, protect civilians, and prevent a large-scale humanitarian crisis. China has provided emergency humanitarian assistance to Ukraine and will continue to make its own efforts to this end. All that sounds quite good, right? But China hasn't actually played the role of the mediator or provided enough to ask, say, for example, for Russia to cease fire. While China may be verbally calling for these things, for the war to stop, it is not doing anything physically. In fact, we may indicate that China is doing the opposite. Now, on the United States side, the message is quite clear. What we do know is that the intention of the United States is quite clear. It's actually clearer than ever. The U.S. is forcing China to pick a side, and right now, the answer seems to suggest that China is very much choosing to back Putin, whether that is secretly or blatantly. But it's very clear on the Taiwan issue, it seems, but provided an ambiguous answer on the Ukraine issue. So the response by the United States is to attempt to rally allies and put additional pressure on China, and to force China to choose, whether that is distance itself from Russia or to go all in, doubling down on backing Russia. At the same time, we see that Russia is asking for many items: drones, surface-to-air missiles, vehicles, whether that is a part of an existing agreement between Russia and China or not, doesn't really matter, because the U.S. is using the intel to corner China. As you can see, both the U.S. and Russia are now starting to look at the Chinese Communist Party with one side asking for more support, more aid to ease the sanctions, and the other side asking to cut off and potentially join the sanctions on Russia. So China has to make a choice. As we have discussed before, though, the Chinese Communist Party is actually, they've been an accomplice and a co-conspirator to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, because without the economic agreements signed with China on February 4th, just before the Olympics, Russia's Vladimir Putin would have never been able to secure a guarantee from Beijing to back his invasion, as Putin knows that sanctions would be crippling. Now the Chinese Communist Party, of course, is softening its tone and is starting to be vague and ambiguous because it sees that the international community is imposing far stronger sanctions on Russia than expected, and it could be worse when the Chinese government decides to invade Taiwan. So the Chinese government will be pulled down along with Russia if it chooses to side with Russia, as the secondary sanctions could also be very devastating. So it wants to preserve some type of room for ambiguity with the West. But the United States is saying you have to make it clear.
After the Russians secured Pentagon-run biolabs in Ukraine, the U.S. Embassy was caught deleting proof of this from their website. And when the Russians shared documents showing the Ukrainian Minister of Health ordering employees of these biolabs to destroy all deadly pathogens, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio asked the U.S. State Department if there was any truth to this. Undersecretary Victoria Nuland not only confirmed the presence of the labs, but confirmed that they contain weaponized biological agents that they now fear the Russians will indiscriminately use to start a world war. The Pentagon calls them bio-research labs and containment labs, and claim their clandestine operation is all somehow in self-defense. But they are admittedly creating and storing weaponized biological material. And so these biolabs are in violation of Article 1 of the Prohibition on Biological Weapons. During the past couple years, citizens of the world have been getting an advanced education on bioweapons. And the very same crooks we see foisting the Great Reset medical tyranny are involved in the Ukrainian bioweapons labs. This is all being paid for with tax dollars through the Pentagon's Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the DTRA. U.S. company Black & Veatch has been working closely with the DTRA building bioweapons labs since 2003. Black & Veatch share an office in Kiev with Metabiota, who signed an $18.4 million contract with Black & Veatch in 2014. Metabiota got their start in 2015 with funding from Hunter Biden's Rosemont Seneca Technology Partners, who gave Metabiota $30 million to help protect the world from the spread of epidemics. This is the very same Rosemont Seneca that was mysteriously wired $3.5 million from the wife of the former mayor of Moscow. And the very same Metabiota partnered with Peter Daszak's EcoHealth Alliance, the group that Dr. Fauci used to funnel money to the Wuhan lab for gain-of-function research in 2014. In 2014, Metabiota, EcoHealth Alliance, and the Wuhan Institute of Virology were together researching infectious diseases deriving from Chinese bats. Metabiota, the Bill and Melinda Gates, together researching infectious diseases deriving from Chinese bats. Metabiota is working with known CIA front In-Q-Tel. It is funded by the U.S. Department of Defense, the NIH, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Google, and the National Geographic Society. Metabiota's founder, Nathan Wolfe, sits on the board of EcoHealth Alliance and is a member of DARPA's Defense Science Research Council. In 2012, he wrote a book titled The Viral Storm, The Dawn of a New Pandemic Age, wherein he thanked his friends, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and biotech venture capitalist Boris Nikolic. Boris Nikolic was named Jeffrey Epstein's successor executor upon occasions. He is also one of Klaus Schwab's young global leaders, trained on how to enact the Great Reset agenda being directed by the World Economic Forum. Russia claims the Pentagon has over 30 biolabs in the Ukraine alone. China claims they are operating 336 biolabs in 30 different countries. And now, members of our corrupt U.S. government are saying this is all a Russian conspiracy and that we should soon expect a false flag attack from Russia.
If there's a biological or chemical weapon incident or attack inside of Ukraine, is there any doubt in your mind that 100% it would be the Russians that would be behind it?
There is no doubt in my mind, Senator, and it is classic Russian technique to blame on the other guy what they're planning to do themselves.
I am recording. I can record. Because you guys are being masked lunatics. Like, what's the problem? What's the problem? I don't have to wear one. I don't care what you think I should. I'm not going to wear one, and you're not going to make me wear one. You can't have requirements for me to wear certain things.
Calm down, please, because you're not allowed to record.
I can record. It's a public place.
So it's a public place,
yes.
And therefore you should follow our rules. So you're saying...
Can you just repeat that? It's a public place, so I need to follow your private rules. That's what you're saying? Do you even know what you're saying? Stop making things up.
Who doesn't want a Bill Gates GMO insect to bite you? I mean, come on. Who doesn't want Bill Gates to have a programmed insect land on your arm or land on your back or land on your leg and he put a proboscis into your body and inject DNA into you? I mean, hell, next you're going to be against the Pfizer shot or the Moderna shot. Well, that's what they've got going on. Scientists to release GMO mosquitoes funded by Gates Foundation in California and Florida. Millions of GMO mosquitoes funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are released in California and Florida, according to reports. Wow, let's hear about this. So if he can't physically rape you, he'll send out mosquitoes to do it. The EPA greenlit the release of GMO mosquitoes as part of a pilot program to crowd out natural mosquitoes in selected areas of 2 states. Of course, they did this in Brazil, and it caused a mutated mosquito that had an even more toxic thing and passed on, but that's okay. Tim Cooks K.
Who is Tim Cook? And obviously, Alex Jones is telling everybody that he's gay. Skull and Bones, people.
Tim Cooks K. The mosquitoes were made by UK-based biotechnology firm Oxitec, which is funded by Bill and Melinda Gates in an effort to combat insect-borne diseases such as dengue fever, yellow fever, and Zika virus, reported the Epoch Times. According to their company, its sustainable and targeted biological pest control technology does not harm beneficial insects like bees, butterflies, and has proven to control the disease-transmitting mosquito. So there you go. That's what matters. Bill Gates doesn't want to rape you with his stainless steel proboscis. He wants to do it with a very friendly creature that's been programmed and prepared and readied for that since the day it was born in a big tank of water.
Okay, brothers and sisters. Mosquitoes, I don't know why he would say they're friendly. They're not friendly. It's how people get Zika. Old people die from mosquito bites because of their weakened immune system. The blood type that I have, mosquitoes are extremely attractive to me. Just like blood drives and everything, everybody wants my blood, including mosquitoes. I get swarmed by mosquitoes. I've even seen the entity with what I call a mosquito gun or a bug gun. You need eyes to see to even know what I'm talking about when it comes to the bug gun. But these things are very real. Also notice, right, he's definitely a Skull and Bones individual, or Golden Dawn is really probably what they're more associated with. Skull and Bones, definitely. You saw all the symbolism. It's all there, people. Including the way that he's talking. That's how they talk. This is how demons talk. Alex Jones is not some hero. He is not some messiah. He is a piece of shit. On top of that, which is what I think is going on over there in this whole Russia-Ukraine thing, I think that it's like 9/11 on a massive scale. Okay, that's where they did all the work, and now they're destroying it. I understand that, with, Putin and, against the NWO and whatnot, but Putin is another one of these cogs. Even though they have a pseudo-Christian country kind of religion type of thing, I mean, I'm actually more for Russia, to tell you the truth, because if you need to pick the greater of two lesser evils or two greater evils or whatever, that's what you'll have to pick. Because which one's doing right and which one's doing wrong? Well, Russia is doing the right thing. They're mainly doing a humanitarian thing going into Ukraine doing this. Like, they wouldn't blow up buildings and schools and stuff. They need these buildings. So whenever you invade a country, you can occupy the power stations. You can occupy the buildings. You don't blow them up. So it's the Ukraine doing it to their people because their people didn't follow the whole getting shot thing, which 90% of people are... I don't want to talk about it because you can just go outside your house and go see it, brothers and sisters. May peace be with you.